Hello everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you my Pick a Stick Challenge art journal page for the month of February. In addition, I will be drawing a face on this page, which will be my first face for the 29 faces that happens every February, where you draw a face each day. I don't know how many videos I'll be making of that, but I'm going to be drawing faces every day because I certainly need the practice, as you will see. Step one for this month, the first prompt. Remember, these are one-word prompts. The first prompt was Gesso, and that happened to be really good because my page had some splatches and splotches from the previous page that I had done in this art journal. So it was good to prime the page and to cover up some of that stuff that I always make a mess with. The second prompt was drip, and there are two colors. There is royal blue and burnt umber this month. Those are the two colors that were picked with the random picks of sticks. Royal blue is a bright, intense blue. I ended up using primary cyan in place of royal because I didn't have any royal. And then burnt umber is a deep reddish brown that's created by burning the umber. You can have raw umber and you can have burnt umber. They're two different colors. If you're curious about the colors, you can look up Pantone and find out their version of the colors anytime that you want to. Most of the color prompts that we're using are actual artist colors that were originally made with pigments, and nowadays I don't know how they make them. I have some art colors that are made with pigments, but you know what I'm saying. These are the artist colors, not the made-up colors. But I did end up using coffee bean or coffee grounds, whichever it is from Dilutions, as burnt umber because it was very close to the color. So I dripped the royal blue from the top and I dripped the burnt umber from the bottom. And then the next prompt was angular. The word angular means not round. That's all it is, just not round. So I decided to add a couple different angular things because it was giving me an idea. The first thing I did was I took some buff titanium acrylic paint and I did some diamonds. You know, diamonds are an angular shape. They're not rounded. So anything like that, zigzags, triangles. There's these prompts are designed for you to interpret what that means to you. So angular means a few things to me, and I will be using it in a couple different ways. So once I was done adding my diamonds, which are angular, then I decided to draw. I knew I was going to draw a face because today is February 1st when I made this video. And so that's day one of faces. But something that I always say to myself when I'm trying to draw male faces is that they are more angular than female faces. They have more masculine looks, which means that they have a more square jaw, more square forehead, straighter eyebrows. They're just more angular. And so that was my second interpretation of that prompt, was to draw a male face, which is more angular and not as soft and rounded and sweet as a female face. Not that males aren't sweet. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that overall, that's kind of a generalization of when you're trying to draw something that looks masculine versus looks feminine. So I got out a very soft graphite pencil because I am drawing over this whole acrylic background thing and I want to be able to see my lines. So that is a 6B graphite drawing pencil. It's a super soft. So when you use it, it makes a heavier, darker line. And it's also really easy to blend or it's even water soluble. You can blend it with water or you can just blend it with your finger a little bit. So I drew my basis of my angular, masculine looking face using this pencil. And I use a white eraser to erase when I feel like I need to change something. And I do erase a lot. I don't just go in there and say, bam, this is how it's going to be. I adjust and readjust. And another thing that I found, I really just kind of, I mean, I know this, but today I really realized why some things are done on an easel. I was drawing this face with the art journal page down on my desk so that you can look at it from up above. And once I had finished and I was ready to look at it, I picked it up, and the whole perspective of it is so much different when you look at it front facing instead of laying down, because when it was laying down, the face seemed wider and shorter, foreshortened and more wide, and that's all about perspective of how you see things. And then once I stood it up, the face seemed very narrow and tall. And so what I thought I was drawing and painting didn't end up being exactly what came out in the end, which is just kind of funny. I mean, that's why you need to do something like this on an easel. But of course, I can't do it on an easel because I'm trying to film, and so I probably need to sit up and scoot forward on my chair so that I can get a better perspective. But I was just lazing and leaning back, you know. So once I was done with my initial sketch with the graphite, then I'm using what was left over here of my titanium buff to fill in the skin tone. And then also I am using that same coffee bean, I think it's called, Dilutions paint, which I'm substituting for the burnt umber. It's basically that color, just has a funny name, for the hair. And I'm not going for precision or perfection or realism particularly on this. I'm making it painterly and scratchy and a little bit messy, and you know, my brush is held back and I'm just kind of like, I'm not in there going, ooh, I need to make this little tiny line. I'm just slapping some stuff on there. And then I go back over, once it's dry, I go back over and start filling in the details again. Something happened to the nose, and I never was happy with it again for the rest of the time. But the nose and mouth somehow got weird, but I don't know. Anyway, I liked it. I liked it when I first drew it, and then something happened to it. I don't know. The face is a 3/4. So, you know, you've got to think about that when you're doing the eyes and the mouth and the nose. It's turned slightly, so it's not straight on, which is more dynamic and interesting than a front-facing portrait, but also a little bit more weird to draw. So then I have my Neocolor 2 water-soluble crayons out, and I'm going to use those on my face. And I also end up getting out a charcoal pencil. There's my charcoal pencil, and the nice thing about charcoal, it's even darker and more blendable than the graphite. So I can really blend with my finger, drawing the lines very dark. You know, make the shadows dark. This is a guy. This is supposed to be a heavy brows and dark shadows and, you know, scruffy face. So that's the reason I'm using charcoal. When you use charcoal, it's a good idea to seal. And so I will be sealing this. I want to use Spectrafix, which is a pump sprayed sealer that you use with pastels, because it's not stinky. And I don't like to use stinky, chemically smelling stuff in my studio, but I couldn't find it. It's buried somewhere. I don't even know where it is. So I'm going to have to find it. But I will seal this before I close the book, because that charcoal will rub off onto the next page, and then the next time I get out this journal to work, I'll be mad because I will have this messy page to work with, which, you know, can be overcome, but still, it's just better to seal it. So I'm just continuing to work. The white eraser does somewhat work on the charcoal as well. So, you know, if you do need to lighten up a spot or something, you can. It's not a big deal. Still trying to decide if I want how much, you know, like 5 o'clock shadow this one has or whatever. I'm just messing around, just, you know, nitpicking, fussing, and making sure that I didn't miss anything. So then I start in with my Neo colors, and I start with the real dark brown. That's Van Dyke brown, which is a dark color. I was thinking that I was going to make some pretty dark shadows with that, but then I ended up thinking it really wasn't what I wanted. So then I started using some other colors like this ochre color, and I'll end up using kind of a peach color, and then even bringing back in the blue, a dark blue color eventually. Sticking kind of with the colors that are on the page. The watered down paint at the bottom split out and made that kind of amber color. Really does look like coffee, actually. The name of the paint is Coffee Bean, I think, or Coffee Grounds. I think it's Coffee Bean. And as in that one area right there, as I was dripping, putting extra water on, it really does kind of look like a coffee stain right there. So that's kind of cool. It really is the color of coffee. Who knew? When you water it down. There I come in with the real kind of peachy color to add some highlights, to bring out the cheekbones and the forehead area. And I have the water brush out and I'm using it a little bit, but more I'm using it to remove color than I am using it to blend, because I'm leaving this scratchy. I'm scratching with the Neo Color 2 like a pastel. It looks more like an oil pastel than it does a water soluble crayon at this point. And that's what I'm going for. That one's a little bit more pink, thinking that he might need a little bit of warming up, but then I didn't like it. Looked like he had lipstick on. So anyway, this whole process goes on and on. I can talk a little bit about a couple other things having to do with Pick a Stick Challenge. People seem confused by the one-word prompts. I truly thought that when we changed that the one-word prompts would be easier. But please, if you don't understand a word, just look it up on the internet. If you don't know what a color is, go to Pantone and look it up. You know, it's not rocket science. I know some of you don't speak English as a first language, but the internet is there to help you. And even more than that, this exercise of doing an art journal page using prompts is to boost your creativity, to make you think outside of the box, to make you really think about things. If I say, get a 1-inch flat brush and use gesso on a page to seal it, that's not challenging your creativity. That's just telling you what to do. And that's kind of our prompts in the past were kind of like that. They were saying, okay, use this product or use that product in a lot of cases. So we wanted to get away from that. Want you to use your imagination, think outside of the box, think about what the word means to you. That's what the whole challenge is. So I hope that people will embrace that instead of, you know, thinking that it's too hard and not do it because you have to actually think about stuff, you know. Do it. It's fun. It's challenging, and you end up with some great artwork. That's what I'm saying. So there's a little bit of that titanium buff left on the desk. I know that the sun is starting to come in and take over my desk. I did have to take a break very soon, but I used that leftover titanium buff and my finger to add back in some highlights again, to add some really light spots where your face would be coming out. So I took a break, and while I took a break, I was thinking about Crumble, and there's this song that I've heard a few times called Crumble to Pieces. I thought about Crumble a lot. I thought I could use something like some embossing powder or something and make a crumbly looking area on the page, but I really didn't want to do more texture. I thought I could put a recipe on there about how to make a fruit crumble or something like that. Crumble's a weird one, so you're not the only one who's challenged. I'm challenged too. And what I came up with was actually using the word itself and lyrics with that word, which is absolutely 100% a legal use of a prompt. That's absolutely fine. If you want to just write the word on there because you can't think of anything else, that's absolutely fine. This is up to you. This is, you know, your interpretation of the prompts to make it interesting. The next prompt was cloud, and I decided to just use a piece of scratch paper and tear it up a little bit, and then use some white acrylic paint to sponge on some little cloud areas. The song lyrics talk about going to heaven, and, you know, we always think about heaven being a cloudy place up in the clouds, or at least some people think of it that way. And so I decided that clouds in the background would be absolutely appropriate to this page, which is funny because I wasn't thinking about that when I picked the lyrics. So the last prompt on the list, number 6, was bleach. So I ran downstairs. I was thinking I could do something by bleaching some cardstock or bleaching out some ink or something. And you know what? I didn't have any bleach. We have 0 bleach. I don't know how we're getting our clothes white because there was no bleach. So I decided to skip that prompt and to use one of the wild cards. The one I picked is glue. And so I punched out 3 little hearts. You know, it is February, and this song is talking about love and stuff like that. So punched those out, glued them on with some mixed media glue from iCraft. So that's it for me for this page. Remember to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment so I know you're here, or ask a question if you need a question. You can always come over and join the group. And that's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.